And we are back!
Yay, we're back!
Hello and welcome to a brand new season of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, I'm Renny.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Josh. And it's been a while. This is the first time we've filmed in this nature for 22 months. First general discussion that we've had. We had a patron-exclusive discussion that we would encourage you to check out if you choose to become a patron. Charlie, you're back for a 15th straight season.
It's been 84 years. I'm still in that meme, yeah. But it's, yeah. Hi, everyone.
And Renny, it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
And we have a brand new person on the panel.
My first
Nick.
time.
It is a delight to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
It's my pleasure.
Right, thanks. Thank you.
Nick and I went to college together. He took part in the literature club that I was in, that I put together. And I fondly remember the time we did that password tournament together.
Oh, yeah.
We finished in third and raised a lot of money for the Ocean County Animal Shelter. Anything people should know about you, Nick?
No, I don't think so in particular. Like you guys, I share a love of reading, and we bonded over that in school, and I'm just so happy that we've kept in touch, and I've been happy to keep up with the show as well.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I've really appreciated and admired your ongoing support and enthusiasm for what we do.
Thanks.
The first discussion of this new season that we are going to be going over was one that Renny selected, and that is The House of Asterion, a short story. And by that, it's a short story by Jorge Luis Borges. You have a discussion starter, Renny?
Well, I'll give you a reason that we're doing this. Came from my English 2 anthology, and I didn't use it until last year because I didn't know it existed. I don't want stories too long. We do A Good Man's Hard to Find. That's long. But my students are much better off with, Hills Like White Elephants, that's, a page and a half of dialogue. And Asterion is relatively short also. And it puts us in the time between the Bronze Age and the Late Bronze Age, which is where the Oedipus legend comes from, and Antigone. And we're going to start reading the play Antigone. So they just meld it together. I also like Borges for his magical realism, which is a phenomenal genre. So that's how this started. I'll make my first question in, since we are looking really at the Minotaur's point of view, why should we look at the monster's point of view?
Because who is it a monster to? Is it a monster to, just because society may see the monster as a monster, are they really horrifying and terrifying and out to hurt people?
Well, I think in this case, since he ate, they say 9 people in here in the Theseus legends, 7 years, doesn't matter, 7 people. I mean, that's the only time he has visitors. Mostly he tells us, and I'm sure he must feel this way, that he's very lonely. He's in an unformed house with no doors, and he's hoping someone will come and bring him to salvation. He's very thoughtful in a way. He has the head of a bull and the body of a man because he's the product of the queen falling in love with a prize bull, and she has this child. They have to maintain the child because of the royal blood, but they don't want him hanging around the court, so they put him underground in a huge maze. And to keep him happy, they feed him people every now and then.
That clears up a little bit for me, the infinite number of places, the infinite courtyards, the infinite wellheads that he talks about.
Yes.
But it's also a matter of, if he's not going to eat these people, what is he going to be eating?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, it's not like if he is trapped in there for...
He's I don't think he's a grass grazer. I mean,
Is
he's
there grass
evidently-
where he is?
I don't think so.
Well,
I think he's in a basement that is mostly, well, they didn't have cement at the time, but certainly carved stone, yeah.
The approach that I know that you very kindly sent information as far as the mythological inspiration was concerned about Theseus, you said?
He says Theseus, I say Theseus, potato,
Theseus.
potato.
Okay.
Cookie.
But
Cookie.
the approach that I was taking, the more literary approach, I did some background on Borges's, what inspired him to write this in the first place, because this appeared in the Aleph, which was a collection of short works. He was inspired by a piece of art called the Minotaur. It was painted by George Frederick Watts, and it was completed in 1885. And if you look at the picture, the Minotaur looks like it's staring into a red sky, and it's in that sense of contemplation.
He is menacing. In the legend, he is not really menacing in this story.
No.
He's a sympathetic character.
Almost
Yes,
like
it's...
when I read it. Of course, it took me 1,000 times to read it, if I may. It seemed like he was. I got a lot of biblical themes out of it first. Like, it's like philosophical. I mean, and then I had to put that aside, and I'm like, there's a lot of things that were, to me, like as we said earlier, to me it's like Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay.
You just shut up, put away. Here's some toys to play with, and I like cookies, and it's just. That's basically it. That's about it.
Where are your drumsticks?
Oh, glad you asked.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you...
No, I'm not slacking.
Yeah, okay, that's good to
I
hear.
haven't been playing lately because of...
One of his
things,
problems is I don't think he has much to play with or to do.
We could teach him how to play drums, maybe. Right?
He
Left,
might have
right?
played the
Well,
timpani.
he
mentions that no one ever taught him to read. He doesn't
Yes.
know
Oh,
to
yeah.
read, so to have all the time in the world.
And he wanders. He has no
Yeah.
doors to open, so he's wandering
He
around.
says he's not keeping hostage. Almost like I've never kept anyone hostage, too.
Well,
so-
that's because they don't last once they get there.
Exactly. The doors are unlocked. He made that very clear.
Yes.
So my initial reading was, is this some kind of god or goddess or deity?
He is
in a way.
partly God.
They
yes.
do make toward the end. They do make reference to something that's reflective of what we see as the Lord's Prayer. So it's interesting that you make a biblical
Well,
reference.
because he's
to that.
talking about salvation. He's waiting
Yes.
for his salvation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he does what he can to entertain himself too. The whole creator of games aspect, and he just tries to create a world that he can occupy himself in, rather than just sit there and do nothing, which is pretty much what he's set up to do.
Well, because he's associated with a huge legend that comes out of ancient Greece, I think we should add that his person who's going to save him is actually the person who decides he should be destroyed. And because he's in a maze, a princess gives Theseus a thread so he can go through the labyrinth, destroy the Minotaur, and then find his way out again. And that using, I don't know, what did they use in E.T.? M&M's, whatever it is, trails
Reese's.
that you leave. Reese's. Yeah, M&M's wouldn't do it. There's certainly that kind of theme of wandering into strange places and trying to find your way to get back out of them. That is part of the story. He's the center. He's going to be attacked and then he's going to be abandoned.
What a wonderful life.
Have you read any background information on Borges as far as his love affair with Stella Canto was concerned?
No.
Because that really fascinated me. I mean, I looked it up from an alternate source, but it does cite Edwin Williamson, who's his biographer, making reference to the fact that because his mother was very overbearing and overprotective, and it flowed into his relation with Canto. They met, they were engaged a year later, but a year after that, they broke things off with one another.
Does it mention why? Or is it
She
just...
felt that his mother was too
Right. Sorry.
was too controlling, too overbearing. There is that idea that because this character is so constrained and he wants to break away from the monotony and live a more liberating life, in that aspect he can relate to.
Okay, also, I always thought interesting is how the name comes up in Greek, aster is a star. We use
Yes.
disaster, something that blows up.
Don't look at me.
And so he is an odd star creation in a sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting, like I said earlier, yes, biblical references, but Asterion, to me, yeah, I'm like, it's from not this world, it's not of this, it's a star.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love for me, the tone, kind of changed as I was reading it. On the first page, I kind of felt like he was full of like hubris. He was like bragging almost about his situation, his life.
mm-hmm.
And as I was putting it together, I thought I wasn't aware that he was the Minotaur yet. That was like the twist for me.
You see that at the end.
I went in blind, and
I did too.
then by the second and third page, I'm feeling really bad for him because he was talking about how he can't connect with other people, and now I realize other creatures at all, probably. Maybe sort of like almost lying to himself, like, I can leave if I chose to, but I just don't want to. To hear he's trapped in the labyrinth, maybe he can't, and so it was really fun by the end, the totally different feeling than when I started.
I think that the first paragraph is something that a lot of people can relate to in the way that people will make initial impressions on people
Yes.
before they want to examine and learn more about what it is that may help develop their empathy. Because, I mean, from first impression, he uses those words, and when you see those words, you will immediately make that application. However, when you read it multiple times, I get that sense that this is what people are making him out to be, but is he really?
Well, we have been doing practically since the 60s and not too much earlier, always looking at criminal motivation. And that's also where we started to come up with, if somebody had a terrible childhood, that kind of justified why they were a psychopath or sociopath or whatever their problem was. And we've been doing this literarily because you can get a book from the wolf's point of view, Little Red Riding Hood, from the wolf's point of view, the Three Little Pigs. So, we have in many ways taken that attitude, and you see this all the time. We just had another mass murder, and what are they saying? We don't know what the motivation was. To be perfectly honest, in some of those cases, I don't care, just apprehend the person. I
agree
was.
that the
But we're seeing here, this is his motivation.
It's also, I'm so sorry, I have legal training, so bear with me. It's also, yes, motivation, but what is their intent as well? Because
their reason, meus res.
yeah. Well, because intent and motivation are two totally different things, believe it or not.
Because is he looking to is he clearly looking to go out, aggress, and hurt?
He
or
doesn't
is he
sound aggressive in this story at all.
To me, no, I agree.
I agree with the aspect that the why is more fascinating than the what and the how. However, I don't think motives and certain backgrounds give you the right to go
For
out
anything,
and
yes.
deliberately
But we
hurt or
certainly
cause
spend
harm.
a lot of time discussing that whenever some big event happens.
Yes.
And that's why they have the federal sentencing guidelines.
Well, you want to feel like you can understand the motive and intention, then maybe you can understand what happened better and have some sort of closure, because that hanging question that may never be answered, and certainly doesn't justify anything, but having
I
a
don't want
complete picture.
I'm not going to turn this into a criminal law lecture, I promise. But yes, I agree. And there are times where a judge or even a jury says, even though we highly condemn what you went through, we're going to lessen the charge. And again, I'm turning it into a... Yeah. For those of who don't know, I went back to school and became a legal assistant. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying this is why I'm bringing this up. But you're right, public policy frowns upon these horrible offenses against the person, offenses against all these things, and turning it into criminal things.
So,
I'm trying
what would the judge think of the Minotaur in front of him?
Exactly.
He ate 9 people, but he also has been living in a labyrinth, trapped without another person to
You have
connect
aggravating
with.
and mitigating factors that come into play, and it's
And
there's some sympathy there.
The question is, how did he get into the labyrinth in the first place?
Yeah.
And I think I go back to thinking about that being an allegory for him and his relationship with his mother.
Sorry.
The fact that she's kept him restricted for so long. And he wrote this, he was in his late 40s when he wrote this.
That's a pretty decent amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Well, I have to say, until fairly recently, almost everyone had a good classical background in whatever education they had.
Yeah.
That's being abandoned. And one of the reasons I do something like this and the play Antigone, because my students don't recognize the illusions that are just everywhere and everything else.
I also read that Borges didn't, at the time that he wrote this, he wasn't as acclaimed as he is now. When he won the Prix International alongside Samuel Beckett was when he really started to pick up his acclaim, because Beckett at the time was renowned in the Americas and Europe. Borges was, because he was from Argentina.
Yeah, he's from South America. And we don't have much from South America, although there is enormous literature.
Yes.
We just don't discuss or promote it.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Pablo Neruda. I like Nicanor Parra. It is very prosperous down there. Mm-hmm. Anything we didn't cover? Any final thoughts?
It's very short. Anybody who has any difficulty with reading or does not like to read long pieces, this is short. It's in the first person. You don't have to worry too much about really what I call the backstory, because you don't have to know that in order to read the story. It's really worth reading. It's very charming.
The very end, right? He is destroyed at the very end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I imagine that's another part of another myth that I don't know much about. You know, talk about beginning to end, it really wraps
Mm-hmm.
up. And definitely check it out.
And that's where we figure out who he is, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I went in on this blind as well,
Mm-hmm.
and this is not a read it once and oh okay. This is a read it 5, 7, 10 times, and it's like, I'm a little rusty on my Greek mythology, but once I looked into it a little bit more, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm frightened. But at least, we understand, as we said earlier, when we spoke about motives, yeah, but it's also what's the intent of a person, or in this case, a creature's mind. We can't just, we have to look at the person first, and then... Anyway, I'm not going to turn it into criminal justice, I promise. Okay, I'm done. Cookies!
Already, the $1 million question, Renny, is...
Read it.
The $1 million question, Renny, is, do you think that your class will get something out of this discussion?
Oh yes, they've already covered it. If we have this to show them, I'll bring everything that we've covered. This was our 5th story and our last story, because we're melding into drama, but it works very well that way. I really like the story. I didn't know it existed till a couple of years ago. I didn't know any short things by him. I knew longer works, but I didn't know any short stories. So I was really excited to introduce the House of Asterion.
It's about 3 pages, right?
Yeah, it's 2.5.
2.5?
I mean, we went over Borges and I back in season 4. This is my first exploration into his shorter work.
Right.
This will be up by the time the fall 2024 semester.
We could maybe get it next spring.
Or spring of 2025. It's very easy to find this if you Google the House of Asterion. I would encourage you to look into a written collection like
Yes.
the Norton Introduction to Literature, or if you can find the Aleph. I want to thank you for tuning into our discussion, and we have plenty more for our 15th season on their way. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
Reading and eating.